Hello, Tori, and welcome to the Coach's Journey podcast.
Thanks, Ruth. Really nice to be here. Not something I thought I would ever be saying.
I know it's crazy, isn't it, to think that like nearly 4 years ago, I remember like recommending this podcast and Robbie's work to you,
Yeah, exactly.
and now here we are.
I think it was last year. I don't know if I sent it to Robbie on LinkedIn or posted it on LinkedIn. My most listened to podcast on Spotify last year was The Coach's Journey.
Oh, that's fab. Oh, I love that.
Hmm.
Did Robbie respond?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Good. Good. I was just about to go, didn't Robbie? Didn't Robbie get back to you? Good.
No,
Yeah,
he
because
was.
he'll
He was.
he'll have really loved knowing that, I think.
Hmm.
Amazing. So, how are you today? How's life?
Good. Yeah, the sun's been out today, and I feel like that makes a difference
Yeah,
in January as well. It's a hard month, isn't it?
it is. I mean, yeah, it is. I'm both me and my partner are doing run every day in January.
Oh, wow. How far are you running?
We only have to do a mile.
Okay.
I've been kind of doing between a mile and 2 miles every day. My partner's just been doing a mile, like literally.
That's
Which
amazing though, every day. Gosh.
yeah, but it's actually been really good because it's taken that decision making out. It's
Mm.
not like, am I going to go for a run today? It is, you're going for a run. It's just a matter of when.
And where? Or are you doing the same route?
No, Scott's been doing the same route, which blows my mind. And he's also doing it on like the busiest dual carriageway
Oh gosh.
because it's literally outside the house and he can run to a certain point and run back and he knows it's a mile.
Okay.
Whereas I need a bit more freedom and a bit more interest. So I might go down to the canal or the park or whatever. Um, but it has helped kind of blow the cobwebs away and keep the January blues at bay, I think.
Mm.
But it has been lovely the past few days, even though it's really cold.
Much
Um,
better than that rain we had over Christmas, I think.
yeah.
Mm.
So it's a good old British start to the podcast, isn't it? Talking about the
Talk
weather.
about the weather.
Especially when I don't think this will come out until like May, June. So maybe even later than that. I'm not sure. So yeah.
Well,
Um,
those people that are listening to it then appreciate the sunshine and the
yeah.
warmth that you hopefully have.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice to think about that, isn't it? About
Mm.
summer and spring. Excellent. Well,
Mhm.
let's just dive right in,
Mhm.
I think, and start with the favorite Coach's Journey podcast question of when did you first come to coaching, or what you now know as coaching,
Mm.
or what you is different to what you now know as coaching, but was coaching back then. Whatever.
Yeah, so I think really my first kind of memory of being aware of what coaching was my first manager in my old job. So that was in conservation. And I remember her saying to me that the head of the board of trustees wanted her to get a coach. And I was like, oh, okay. Sort of thought I knew what a coach was. And then she did get a coach and she had, a session with a coach, and I was, kind of quizzing her, like, what do you do? And she's like, well, we just kind of talk. And she asked me loads of questions. I think I said something like, oh, that's weird. And then she had this, I think I still got it actually, this book of different exercises and things that the coach had given her, and she did some of them with us. So I remember, I mean, I didn't know it was called this at the time, but it was a behavioral drivers questionnaire, kind of like what motivates you. And then there was Johari's window in there somehow, which I think I mixed up with another exercise. So I kept referring to Johari's window in conversations, and she'd look at me like a little bit kind of strangely. But
What's
I think,
Johari's window? I've not heard of that.
oh gosh, don't ask me,
Okay.
because I still get it mixed up.
Which one of two could it be?
So I think it's the one where it's you don't know what you don't know, and
Okay.
it's the boxes
Yes.
and the sort of known unknowns and the unknown
Yeah.
unknowns. I think it's that one.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
we can check and put it in the show notes
Yeah, we
afterwards.
can. And if it's not that, that's fine.
um, and then I think even before she had a coach, she was coaching me. She was using like a coaching style as my manager. And I remember sometimes finding that really frustrating. um,
Really.
just because I didn't really know necessarily what I was doing quite a lot of the time. I was quite no. I think so. I originally lived in Madagascar with when I worked for that organization,
Wow.
which was amazing, and happy to talk more about that. But when I moved back to the UK office, it was hugely different. Much smaller team, very quiet office, like you could hear a pin drop, and I felt a little bit scared. The person before me had been not before me because it was a different job, but I came in knowing that a couple of people had been let go and I was terrified that I was going to be made redundant. So I was a little bit worried about everything. And so the coaching style, I think, was great. And in hindsight, I can see exactly what she was doing. I didn't know it was coaching at the time, but she wanted me to own it and, wasn't giving me answers to everything and wasn't always giving me her opinion. But I think I was maybe a bit confused by that because I hadn't really had that from a boss before. And actually, I'd love to call her up, and maybe I will do this and ask her whether she knew that she was coaching me and was meaning to coach me. Whether that's how she branded it at the time. I'd be quite interested to know that. But I think, once I kind of found my feet and gained a bit more confidence, I think she really set the tone and kind of not built foundations because it wasn't my first job, but I don't know, put some really important bricks into the foundations of my leadership style. Very kind of like collaborative and coaching and involved. And I'm really grateful to her for that because I didn't really know what was happening at the time, but looking back, I can really see how that shaped me as a person and also as a manager within that organization. So that's really how I first became aware of coaching, and then the sort
Sorry,
of
I'll just stick my nose in.
mm,
Would it have been helpful if you had known she was doing coaching?
um yeah, possibly. I think maybe if she'd said, I'm not going to tell you all the answers because either because I don't know them or because I don't know, whatever the reason was.
Because
So
she wanted you to find the answers for yourself, like
yeah,
you said, so you can own it.
maybe that was the reason. Maybe it's because she didn't know the answers and we had to figure it out together. I'm not totally sure. But I think maybe some indication around what was going on
Yeah.
might have settled me, is the word that's coming to mind.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's a good word.
mm,
And also, it makes me think about like my supervision, which is often with Robbie. Um, and he says, and I think he says it because somebody else says it, like the answer to everything is always contracting.
yeah.
So perhaps had there been some contracting, it might have
Mm.
been more useful. But obviously it sounds like it was really useful for you anyway.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? I think in hindsight, it was really useful for me at the time. I think I felt quite anxious
Mm,
that I wasn't doing the right thing, or
yeah.
I was
And
going to get made
maybe,
redundant, or yeah.
yeah. And I guess those open questions might have made you feel like they were setting you up to give them the wrong answer,
Mm,
or maybe
yeah,
not.
possibly. Yeah, I don't really remember the questions.
But
Yeah.
it's just an interesting catch, isn't it? That
Mm,
maybe a little bit of contracting or outlining what was going on might have alleviated your
mm.
anxiety.
Yeah, which is interesting actually, because it ties to like my next kind of collision with coaching, if you like. And
Elision.
collision, a good one. So I was really lucky to go on a month-long um, residential fellowship thing that was in America. Um, and as part of that, we had a coach. We only saw her like I think 2 or 3 times maybe. And
And was that through your employer, the same employer?
it sort of I had to apply to the organization that was hosting it, and then had to get permission from my organization. So it was kind of sponsored in the sense that they let me go, but it was costs were covered by the other organization.
Okay.
And yeah, so I had a coach through that, and she was talking about contracting in the sense of some of the things that came up around me changing my management style. And it was around kind of helping people, and it's really stuck with me what she said. It was something along the lines of, what if by doing these things or helping them or trying to rescue them, you're actually being selfish and denying them a learning opportunity? And that's really stuck with me. And we talked about some things that I could do differently. And she said, well, you might need to give them a heads up about some of these things, because if you just stop doing this or you start acting like this, they're going to be a bit surprised and a bit shocked. So sort of like contracting,
Yeah.
setting those expectations. And it's really stuck with me, that. And I find it very useful when working with clients who want to change their behavior, because there's always this, I don't know if it's an assumption or we forget that people come to expect things from us. And when we stop doing them, even if we're stopping doing something that isn't very healthy or
Mm,
or useful, that can create a surprise.
yeah. And also, oh, I've got two things in my head now. I need to pick which one I'm going with. I think we don't like being called selfish, do we?
Mm,
So sometimes that can be a really good driver and a good kind of catalyst to looking at your behavior um in order to change it for the better.
mm,
Like, oh shit, no, I don't want to be thought of selfish. I thought I was just helping them. So now actually when you look at it that way, you're more inclined towards behavior change.
mm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was obviously shocking,
Mm,
and it stayed with me, and it was powerful. And of course, the reason I was, taking on work or helping them out was to try and be helpful, but actually long term, maybe not so helpful.
yeah. And the other thing that was in my head,
Mhm.
is that a question you have since asked, or is that an idea that you have since posed to your clients?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
good
Refused
results.
it. Yeah, and because I sometimes would feel a bit uncomfortable with saying the word selfish, like you say, it's quite shocking, feels a bit confrontational. I tell them the story. You know,
Yes.
a coach once said to me, because I was displaying these behaviors, is it possible that you're being selfish and denying them a learning opportunity? And then, you know, what does that mean for you? Or does that
Right.
resonate with you? And that seems to introduce the idea
Yeah.
differently. But then, you know, it stuck with me because it was shocking. I wasn't upset by it, but it was surprising. So actually maybe I'm doing them a disservice by softening it.
Yeah, maybe. But I think it's the power of storytelling, isn't it?
Mm.
Um, and it's also interesting. Now I'm being too much of a coach, but that that was then highlighted to you that actually, if you're going to change your behavior, you need to explain what you're doing.
Mm.
But we were just talking about your previous boss who perhaps hadn't explained what she was doing.
Mm.
So I just kind of draw parallels there. But I'm not letting you get away with not telling us about Madagascar. What were you
Well,
doing in Madagascar?
um, in simple terms, I was teaching community members. So this is Southwest Madagascar, um, very, very poor communities, in the sense of like, you know, financial terms. They're sort of rich in many other ways, but a sort of hand-to-mouth existence. Most of them didn't own a mobile phone at that point. But I was teaching them to use smartphones, very basic
Wow.
smartphones.
What year was this?
This was 2014.
Okay.
Um, so there was very little internet coverage. But basically using smartphones to record data on sharks that had been caught. So I helped design the sort of the app that was collecting that data, and then was helping to sort of train community members and change the app to deal with various different things to make it sort of user friendly for them. So really, really unexpected things, like because they had been fishing for many years, many of them had lost the feeling in the ends of their fingers.
Oh, wow.
So they couldn't tell, you know, whether they were pressing the screen properly. So we sort of put on the haptics and things so that they could tell when they'd press the buttons and things. So those are things like that, getting them little stylos that they could use, and um, sort of workarounds for that. So yeah, I lived in Madagascar for a year, right on the beach in a hut with a hammock and a bucket for a shower. And I had lots of cockroaches in my hut. I once had a rat in my bed,
Oh my,
um,
no, 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 not
which is a
rats.
whole
I
other
can't do
story.
rats. Wow.
um,
And were you living there by yourself or with a few people from this? Was it a charity, conservation
yeah, so
charity?
it was Blue Ventures that I was working for, and there was other staff located there, but it was also the site of one of their overseas expeditions. So like students or gap year students could come and do some diving and survey the reefs and collect fisheries data. So I was living in the same place as them. So yeah, there was staff, international staff and Malagasy staff there, and then these volunteers as well. And
Did,
obviously the community members.
did you ever go home or were you just there solid?
I came home, so I went out in the September and I came home the following, I think it was May or June, for a wedding. And then I went back. So I came home once in that year, basically.
So how did
Yeah.
you find that?
So it was after my master's.
What was your master's in?
My master's was in conservation and biodiversity. So I originally studied geography at undergraduate, and then I ended up in sort of events and sort of project management roles for different charities. But my kind of dream job had always been something environmental, something conservation-y, and I just kind of got stuck. So after sort of 5-6 years of doing that after I graduated, I worked for three different companies, three different charities. I left my job. I went traveling for a bit, did some volunteering on a couple of different projects. One was a sea turtle one, we're collecting sea turtle eggs and sort of incubating them, or you're protecting them from poachers.
Wow.
And the other one was in the Amazon, and completely different. We were sort of surveying frogs at night and monkeys in the day, completely cut off, no internet, no way of getting in contact with anybody. And then traveled a bit more around Central and South America, and then I came home and started my master's. And it was off the back of that that I found this job. So my supervisor for my dissertation was supervising my manager for her PhD, and he knew my strengths and knew my interests, and he put us in touch. And so I had an interview with them, and then got sent out to Madagascar. Yeah.
And was it obviously aside from cockroaches and rats, like how did you cope with that? I can't think of the word. Solitude. Was it solitude?
Um, yeah, interesting question actually, because I wasn't by myself and I had lots of people around me. I made really good friends with someone that was doing like a medic placement as a medic. So she was training to be a doctor, and she was out there for 6 months, and we became really good friends. And I saw her the other weekend actually. We're
Oh,
still
wow.
yeah, we're still in contact like 10 years later. And so I had friends,
Mm,
but also I was surrounded by volunteers who would change kind of every 6 weeks. And so there's sometimes when I felt really lonely.
mm,
And it was one of those times where you realize that you can feel lonely when you're surrounded by people.
yeah.
And I
And
think it was quite hard. So I was doing long distance with my partner.
oh, so
And
you had a partner at home.
yeah,
Wow.
and he came out for Christmas and to celebrate my 30th birthday. Um, and we traveled around with some of the other staff, and that was really nice. But there'd be times when I'd be staying up till like midnight or 2 o'clock to try and get a tiny glimpse of video, because the internet was so terrible when I lived there. We could message, and Skype was the thing then.
Oh,
It would be,
Skype,
trying to get
yeah.
a Skype connection in
Yeah.
my bug net, just for that tiny little glimpse of video. So it was hard. And I originally only signed up for 3 months, I think it was, because a year felt too long. I was like, that
Yeah.
feels like a long time. But then I extended to 6 months, and then extended to 9 months, and then extended for the year. And then I was ready to come home then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely built up quite I don't know if hard exterior is the right word, but almost, I think I described it at the time as almost like the shell of a beetle.
Yeah.
I didn't kind of realize that I'd built up these defenses until I came back. and started to kind of shake them off a little bit. I think it's
Yeah.
just that always kind of watching your back, always being a little bit out of your comfort zone, not really speaking the language, often
Yeah.
being the only white person in the room or on the bus or in the village. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
solitude is a good question.
Yeah. And I guess part of that kind of beetle skin is beetle skin, beetle shell,
Shell,
beetle
yeah.
shell has to be kind of made up of not thinking about missing people back home
Mm,
and not thinking about, yeah, I guess I'm a bit of a home bird, so that's what's kind of top of my mind when I think about it.
mm,
Um, but certainly for me to be apart from family, friends, especially a partner, that just feels like such a big deal. So, yeah, I'm just wondering, was that part of the beetle shell?
mm. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think there's some kind of defenses that you build in that kind of
Yeah,
situation.
because you could dwell on it, but then your time there's it's going to impact on your time there and it's not going to
Mm.
enable you to get the best out of it, is it?
I
Wow.
think part of it as well was, so I was friends with this medic, and she was working in the health center in the hospital, and obviously sort of was in touch with what was going on from a health perspective, and a lot of it was bad news.
Mm,
People dying from unexpected things, unknown things, people dying in labor, like all kinds of things that
we
we
don't have
take
to
for
deal with,
granted. Yeah,
yeah.
we don't have to deal with. We take for granted that, you know, I think when I was, I think it was either a week or 2 weeks after it arrived, one of the local field staff died. He'd swallowed a fish bone, and I think it had like ruptured some kind of ulcer or something in his stomach. Nobody really totally knows. And so I was invited to his funeral,
Wow.
and I had to go because I was a member of staff. And I've never experienced such raw emotion. The Obviously people are grieving, but they were very outwardly grieving, and there's
Mm,
ladies wailing and lots of crying, and I was just bawling my eyes out. I didn't know this guy. I obviously had lots of empathy for everyone that did know him, and family and staff, everyone very close to him, but something just really hit a nerve. And yeah, just yeah, I can't describe it. It was just such raw emotion. Um, and so I think this kind of, there was a lot of death to deal with,
yeah,
basically, like very deprived in a healthcare sense community. And part of that exterior was to cope with that, I think.
yeah, which is
And
totally understandable.
yeah, sort of how do you, that balance between empathy and getting pulled under.
Yeah, and sanity.
Mm,
Mm. And also, I guess when you talk about the funeral, that's all really not British, isn't it?
mm,
You know, just genuine outpourings of raw emotion.
mm.
You know, we're not the best at that, are we?
No,
as a
definitely not.
culture. And I think it's hard to imagine what being surrounded by that must be like.
Mm,
And I guess it then, like you said, it just tapped into something in you and enabled that to come out.
mm.
Wow. I mean, there's so much there. I'm totally fascinated. I could talk about Madagascar and then the turtles. Where were you with the turtles?
That was in Costa Rica.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were doing beach patrols at night looking for turtles coming in, laying eggs to then collect the eggs and sort of rehouse them, if you like, in a protected area.
Okay.
Mm.
So you come back from Madagascar with your beetle shell. Is it a
Yeah,
shell? I don't know. It's not a
beach
shell, is it?
shell. Yeah, beach
It.
shell.
And then yeah, then just fill in the gaps because that was before you first came across coaching, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I came back from Madagascar, started the job with Blue Ventures. No, sorry. I came back from Madagascar where I'd been working for Blue Ventures and then started in the UK office working with them, which is when I then came across.
Coaching.
Yeah. Although I was thinking about this, and actually, it was probably I don't know, it must have been like my 11th or 12th birthday. I've still got the book actually. I should have checked. I got for my birthday, I got an MBTI Myers-Briggs type indicator book
Wow. From
from my
who?
from my it's from my like godparents. It's a very random thing to receive. And I don't know why they got it for me. I know that I was always into kind of personality tests and
Yeah.
things, but I don't necessarily know that they knew that. I think it was just a really kind of off the wall present. But yeah, I was fascinated by it. I remember doing it with
I
my
think,
mom and like trying
yeah, I
to
think
figure out what
12-year-old
she
me
was.
would have quite liked
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Did you do all of those quizzes that you used to get in magazines? Like,
Yeah.
what's your love language? And
Yeah. Who's your
what
celebrity boyfriend?
yeah.
Do you
I
like kisses on the beach? Kisses on the street? Yeah. Yeah, you'd always got to do the quizzes.
yeah. I just remember always being fascinated with those things. Yeah, and I've still got the book. Um,
And are you still the same Myers-Briggs that you were when you were 12?
I don't think so. I'd have to check what I've probably written notes in it, haven't I? I should have checked
Oh,
before.
yeah.
I should have done. Um, but I did it probably about 2 years ago, and I came out as on the line between I can't remember. Is it P and J? I don't know.
Um,
I was like right on the cusp.
because
I did
it's,
it with Kerry actually.
oh, did you?
Yeah.
I've not done it like properly, but I came out as Inf J, which is supposed to be really rare. But then I've just been coaching a couple of people who were both Inf J.
So I think I was
And
on the cusp of like Inf J and Inf. Is it P that's opposite J?
yeah, possibly judge because J is for judgment, isn't it?
Mm, P
So
for
what's P for perception, maybe?
perception, I think, or
Yeah.
perceiving.
Um, yeah, and these two
Interesting.
people who were Inf J were on a course where everyone else in their on their course, like, or like the majority of them on their course was Inf J.
Well, must attract like a certain personality type.
Yeah.
And
But
I
I
thought
just
you
thought
would
that
have
was
been
in
E.
well, I know, and I really struggle with that because
Mm,
I actually think I'm an ambivert,
yeah, okay.
which obviously there's no room for that in Myers-Briggs. So I did struggle picking like with those questions, but it just so depends for me on who I'm with,
Mood.
mood, but also like I can be extrovert, but I do find prolonged periods with a lot of people really draining.
Mm.
And I'd probably, yeah. So it's not infallible, is it? Is that the right
No,
word?
so
But I can't believe you got a Myers-Briggs book when you were 12, 11 or 12.
mm,
So that's like your first experience of being self-aware
mm,
and of kind of deconstructing others, maybe.
yeah, I like the way you put
Oh,
that.
did you?
I'll take it.
Good. You can have it. Okay. So after your initial experience with coaching, then kind of what brought you to this point?
Mm. So then that coach that I worked with a little bit, the one that told me I
Yes.
could be selfish, some of my sessions were quizzing her about being a coach, or not necessarily quizzing her, but I mentioned it's something that I was thinking about. Because I've always been interested in sort of helping professions. I remember, I don't know if they still do them now, but did you have at school that sort of like career counselor who would make you do some questionnaires and then they'd say, okay, you should be a doctor or you should be a social worker. And I
Yeah.
think I came out with sort of like social work was in there. I know that I was really interested in counseling for a while.
Mm.
Um, but that said, I did want to be a lawyer at one point. So there's definitely things flipped around, but those helping professions kind of really did interest me. So it's interesting that I
It's
went into
always been there.
conservation. Yeah, I went
Yeah.
into conservation. That was about helping the planet, helping
Mm.
people to help the planet. And that, I described that as my dream job. But
Your
after
careers advisor was obviously better than mine. Mine told me to go and be a travel rep.
but I think it would have been a good travel rep.
Well, I would have been, but I went in there and clearly told them that I wanted to be a performer and an actor.
Oh,
And I think they were just trying to manage my expectations. It's like, no, 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 you can't do that, love. Go and be a travel
oh,
rep. So I took my battered
oh.
ball home then. Um, sorry. So yeah,
It's okay.
your career's advice was a lot more nuanced and helpful, I think, by the sounds of it.
I don't know. I think it was just a bog standard questionnaire. But um the yeah, so conservation was my dream job. I got there, worked my way up through the organization, but after 6 years, I just knew that I needed to leave. The organization was changing. It, it just didn't fit anymore. And that coincided with COVID, and it just felt like I was in the wrong place.
Mm.
And various other things going on just meant it was time to leave. And so I'd been talking to this coach when I was away, and she said quite clearly, make sure you build a good network before you leave. You need a good
Mm.
network. Don't leave without having a good network. Did I then invest a year in building a network? Not really. Did I really take her advice? Not really. Do I regret not taking her advice? Probably.
Okay, well, we're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna come back to that.
But yeah, that was when I first kind of voiced it as an idea, and then I went back. I had another year at Blue Ventures. Some new tools and tricks up my sleeve, some new energy, some new wind in my sails. And then this kind of idea came to fruition. I started looking for places to train and finally settled on barefoot and started retraining before I left. So that's
What
how.
what made you choose barefoot?
Um,
And where else did you look?
so the honest answer is price and availability and speed. I
Yeah.
think, like, I obviously looked at reviews. Um, I talked to another coach who I ended up having at the end of my time with Blue Ventures, and she sort of recommended some places. I think she might have said Blue Ventures, or on my journey looking at these other ones, it came, not Blue Ventures, Barefoot, it came up in my research, and they just seemed to be really good training body, had lots of recommendations, and seemed to cover, there was a variety of things that they seemed to look
Mm,
at. Some of the others that I looked at would just teach one model or have one way of doing it, or the sort of more academic ones took a long time and didn't
mm,
feel quite as practical as I wanted. Others looked really, quite good as well, but didn't have availability, or it was going to take 18 months to retrain, and I just wanted to get on with it, really.
yeah.
And I'm
And
very glad I did, because I did love my barefoot experience.
yeah. And
And
that's
of
where
course,
we
that's how
met.
we met.
Yeah. I loved my barefoot experience too. And obviously it's amazing that I got to meet you and lots of other people that I'm still in contact with.
Mm.
So you was I'd forgotten that you were still working when you started barefoot.
Mm.
I'd
Yeah, there was
forgotten
only an
that.
overlap of um when did we start? August.
August.
And so I left in the September. So there wasn't much overlap, but
Ah,
yeah,
right, okay.
I was still working.
Yeah. So you went to barefoot and then what happened?
And then
Oh, okay, well let's rewind
yeah, go on.
to why you wish you had spent longer building your networks.
Um, oh, it's just so important, isn't it? And I think um I did a little bit before I left, trying to sort of reconnect with people, but I think I wish I was better at telling people what I was doing without needing a reason to talk to them. I find that
Hold on,
finding a reason to talk to
just
someone
slow
difficult.
down. Let me, yeah, come on, Coach
I can
Ruth is
say that
here
again.
now. Say it again. You wish it was
So
easier to talk to people
without,
about what you do.
yeah, or finding a reason to talk to people. That makes
Right.
sense. Because just saying, hey, do you fancy a coffee? With
With no, like,
no
apropos of
reason,
nothing.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or with someone that you haven't spoken to for a while,
Okay.
still feels a little bit awkward.
Okay. Yeah. I've got lots going around in my head at the minute because
Spill it, come on, spill it out.
well, no, just because and it's interesting. I think it's about 5 or 6 episodes ago,
Hmm.
and I'm going to be a really bad host now and not remember. No, I'm going to look it up so I don't. It was one of yeah, about 5 or 6 episodes ago on this podcast. Robbie interviewed somebody called Lindsay Lewis,
Mm.
and it's an absolutely brilliant episode, and it really made me think about this. So it's episode 47. And I've also talked a lot to Robbie about this.
Mm.
And it's like that's a muscle to flex, isn't it? Approaching
Mm.
people seemingly out of the blue or inviting people to a coaching conversation. Um, but that episode is definitely worth a listen to about that kind of thing.
Mm. Okay, I haven't
Um,
listened to that one yet, so
yeah, I really enjoyed it. Um,
how do you find it? Has it got easier for you?
it gets easier the more I do it.
Mm.
So before Christmas, I set myself the challenge that I'm going to invite 100 people to coaching by the end of February. Not necessarily to coaching, but yeah, whether to have a coffee to talk about coaching or
Mm.
whatever. And I find that when I'm in it and I'm on it and I'm sending them, it feels really good. And then I'm able to send more and they feel easier.
Mm.
But now I haven't done any since before Christmas. So going back to it feels like climbing a big mountain again.
Mm.
But I
And what kind of
know,
things? Sorry.
but I know that once I get there and get in it and start doing it again, that it's going to feel better and easier.
Mm. What do you say in that initial email though? What's your
It
hook?
it depends who I'm talking to.
Mm.
Like some of them was just inviting ex-clients, old clients to a chat, offering them a free coaching session. Some of it is talking to people about the work that I want to do with emerging leaders. So perhaps they have, they run a company with emerging leaders or um yeah, it just depends who it is that I'm getting in contact with and what I'm getting in contact with them for. Like, is it an invite for coaching or actually is it more network building?
Mm.
Um, so I mean, as far as a hook, I try and just find something, whether it's like, yeah, it's been ages since we spoke, but I'm doing this thing and I thought you might find it interesting.
Mm.
Or, other times genuinely stuff might come on the telly or like one of my old clients goes wild swimming and I went down to the nature reserve around here and saw people wild swimming and it made me think of her.
Mm.
So then I just popped her an email saying, I was thinking about you. And then I had an amazing session with her on Tuesday about like where she's at. And she was so excited to tell me about where she's at in life and how stuff's changed for her. And it was just brilliant.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe it didn't create work there and then, but actually it was just a really nice thing for me to do. So yeah, that's my two penneth about invitations and I agree, it's difficult.
Mm.
Um, and I've also spent a lot of years telling myself that I'm not very good at networking. And I'm really trying to undo that because
Yeah,
it's
why do
just,
we do this to
I
ourselves?
know, it's so not fucking helpful.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not good at networking in a surface. Um, gosh, I'm really struggling with my words today. In a surface, kind of superficial way.
Mm.
But, making contact with that ex-client didn't feel superficial or surface or, it was
Mm.
genuine. And I think I need to find that genuine connection, that authenticity in order to feel like I'm staying in alignment with me and my values and truth instead of just rocking up to a networking event being all gobby.
Yeah, so it's coming from a genuine place then, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, obviously, I've got 100 to do. So sometimes it's just a real quick, I'm offering you a free coaching session. Do you fancy it?
Mm.
Um, and it's interesting. I was talking with someone else from the Coach's Journey community about like, you can invest loads in like writing the perfect invitation, send it,
Mm.
never get a reply. You then send just one of those off the cuff couple of lines and you get a response, positive response back. So it's interesting to think about it isn't necessarily the amount of thought and work you put into an invitation that informs whether or not it's successful or not.
Yeah.
Just get it done.
Mm.
But I feel
That's a
like
good tip.
I've kind of hijacked your
No,
conversation.
not at all.
But yeah, I mean, and it's something like me and you can have a chat about that another time
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to
because
pick your brain a bit more.
yeah, because obviously I didn't, oh, now I'm questioning myself because I left, my story is not dissimilar to yours. By the time
Mm.
I got to COVID, I realized I was burnt out. I needed to make some changes. Uh, and obviously I didn't make a concerted effort to build networks before I left my previous incarnation. But would I use those networks? Possibly. I don't know. I think maybe, oh gosh, it's so hard. I've got like three different voices in my head. I've got like Coach Ruth, podcast host Ruth, and then just me. Um, you can tell yourself that you should have built the networks before you left your job, couldn't
Mm.
you? You know, I'm sure it would have been useful, but I think you'd probably still feel reluctant reaching out to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if
Yeah.
you've already told yourself that you're bad at it, or yeah, barrier's still there.
Mm.
Mm.
So what do you do regarding networking, invitations, client creation?
Mm. I'm not really doing any at the moment. That's kind of my um goal for this year
Mm.
is to work with more people. I'm going to say privately, as in not on a platform. Um,
Yeah, so just outline what you're doing platform wise.
yeah, so I'm working for Better Up. Also doing a little bit of work with Know You More, who
I've not
are
heard of them.
based in Scotland. Um, and I've been working on the regenerative leadership program. So as part of that, people just get a couple of coaching sessions. So that's been quite interesting. I think it's an area they want to grow.
So what do Know You More do then?
So they their mission is to help people through coaching, I think. They they mostly do pro bono work. But yeah, they're a
Okay,
coaching organization.
okay. So you do that and you do Better Up.
Yeah, and then also with someone else from our course, we started conservation coaching. So we work with conservation leaders through one-to-one coaching, but mostly through the leadership development program that we've put together, which is a 6-ish months program. I say 6-ish because it always ends up being a bit
Yeah,
longer than that. But it's a combination of group coaching, knowledge sharing sessions, which are sort of like workshop training, kind of knowledge sharing, but not the traditional kind of training approach, if you like,
yeah.
and one-to-one coaching over that period around many of the issues, areas, interests that conservationists face. So there's a lot around burnout and well-being and resilience and building your skills and self-awareness as a leader, but also looking after yourself and thinking about how you're building that resilience
Mm,
and looking after your teams and those kinds of things.
okay.
And then I've got some, private clients as well who have just come to me really through word of mouth, or recommendations.
But that's a side of your business you want to look at building this year?
Yeah, the sort of private side and the conservation coaching. We'd like to do more programs this year. We'd like to do some open programs. We've done a few programs that are just with one organization. So we'd like to have a program that brings people from different organizations, because I think there's a huge amount of learning that can be done there as well.
Yeah.
So we'd like to grow that this year as well.
Okay.
Mm.
And obviously, your experience of burnout will inform that. And, you know, I guess you've got useful learnings to share with people who are in similar situations to what you used to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, the I think the pivotal moment for me was realizing that I was kind of going down the burnout track. It's not really something that was being kind of bandied around so much at that time. It's kind of everywhere now, isn't it? Burnout, and there's another phrase, but I think burnout means different things to different people. Some
Mm,
people use it as, I'm feeling a bit stressed this week and I really need a day off, and others really like, I can't get up in the morning kind of
mm,
burnout. And I think I was probably somewhere in the middle. Very, I'd become very, very jaded, very cynical. Like what had been my dream job had now was sort of thinking, well, what's even the point in doing this work? It's kind of pointless.
mm,
Nothing's happening. We're not having any impact. I'm not making any difference. Um, and I remember very distinctly a sort of a mini epiphany. And it happened to be, I was in the bath and I had my phone because we take them everywhere. And I came across the 12 stages of burnout. And I
Oh, I
was
don't
looking
think I've
through
seen
those,
that.
haven't you? That sort of talks about the different behaviors that you might be displaying or things that you might be experiencing. And suddenly everything made sense.
Mm,
Because up until that point, I'd sort of been thinking, like, what's wrong with me? This was supposed to be my dream job. Like, why am I feeling like this? Yeah, really thinking, what's wrong with me?
mm,
And suddenly everything made sense. Oh, okay, that's why I'm feeling so angry about that, or that's
yeah.
why I'm feeling so frustrated about that. That's why I feel like this is maybe pointless in some ways.
Mm,
That's too strong a word, but definitely questioning um not questioning my worth, but I'm probably questioning my worth as well, but separate thing. Questioning my I've totally lost the word now.
efficacy.
Questioning, yeah, like impact, I think. Impact.
Mm,
And impact's just become a word that's just so important to me. What is the impact that I'm having? What's the point in this? Are we spending money wisely? Are we helping the people that we really need to be helping? What's the impact, and what's my impact? And I really felt that I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to be having
mm,
due to various different politics within the organization and different other things going on. But sort of as I'd moved, from Madagascar up the hierarchy of the organization, away from that kind of hands-on
mm,
field impact, I found a new level of impact in working with the teams that I was managing, and I was managing people all over the place: Belize, East Timor, Indonesia, and I sort of, you know, ended up coaching them in some way because I didn't
yeah.
always know the answer. And so taking on some of that I learned from my boss, asking questions, trusting them, trying to do that. And, looking back, probably wasn't really coaching, but it was a coaching style, and
Mm,
that sort of collaborative and trusting approach is how I wanted to be as a manager, and more due to other things going on and micromanagement and stuff, that was becoming harder. And that was really clashing with my values as well. It was like pushing me into a place and a person that I didn't want to be. And I thought, well, actually, I'm really enjoying working with these teams. I really enjoy, like, and I would have called it at the time, helping people, supporting
Which of
their
course we'd never
development,
do
which we
now.
never do anymore. You know, supporting their development and supporting them. And I sort of thought, well, if I can do this through developing my coaching skills and helping others to avoid all of these things that I've gone through, that feels like a good impact for me. That feels like a good place to be. If I can help others amplify their impact, that would feel like I'm having
Impact.
more of an impact in conservation, because I'd lost my energy. I'd become very jaded. And so I thought, well, how can I have an impact again? It's like this impact word is.
And does that impact word, it's interesting, like when you started talking about that, like I felt that energy and that importance. So I'm guessing that that's still really, the need or the desire to create effect, impact, still really informs your work, like the work you're doing as a coach, the work you're doing with your creative coaching, not creative, sorry.
Conservation
Thank
coaching.
you.
Yeah.
Conservation coaching, leadership course, like it feels that that's kind of really important.
Yeah, that's where I think it's where my passion comes in as well. That, like, passion to make a difference and passion to have an impact, that word again.
Yeah.
And I think
I felt that passion when you were talking about impact, definitely. Yeah.
I think, that's what prompted me to start conservation coaching, this month-long residential leadership development thing that I went on. Was really eye-opening for me, and I wanted to take some of those learnings through kind of my mistakes as well. I think there wasn't necessarily there wasn't really any training or support until that point. And it was the first time that we sort of started talking about, or that I really started to think about other people's drivers, and emotional intelligence, managing emotions, thinking about how to influence and influence others.
Yeah.
And the sort of all of the politics of everything that was going on, and how to use self-awareness and awareness of others to sort of navigate through that. It's not about manipulating people, it's about coming across in the way that you want to in order to get what you need. That makes sense.
I think we tend to shy away from that word, like influencing, don't we? And because I think of the connotations with social media that it has and stuff. But actually, it's just about communication, isn't it? And communicating effectively with people in order for them, like, sounds bad, like to get them to do what you want, but essentially, that can be the goal sometimes, or just to actually create the situation in which they're going to want to do that thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think communication is so key. I think so many of our conflicts, issues, challenges come from, there's always like communication at the root.
Yeah.
not
What's
feeling
not being
heard, not feeling
said. Yeah.
valued. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I was thinking, oh, I wonder if Ruth's going to ask me what books or people have been influential. And Nancy Klein, I think I wish I'd known about Nancy Klein's time to think when I was in an organization, because I think if I could have taken some of those techniques of really just listening, like giving people the space to talk, taking it in turns to talk, such simple basic
So
things
simple.
that we should be doing, like how to manage a meeting, just I think would have just made such a difference. So trying to bring some of those hindsight learnings in many ways to other conservation professionals so that they can feel supported and heard and
perhaps have
normalize some of
those,
the stuff that they're going through.
yeah, and perhaps have those resources and those ideas earlier on in their careers than what you had, to then avoid the burnout and avoid the difficulties. I mean, obviously, leadership's never going to be straightforward, is it?
No.
But I think having those tools and resources in your back pocket earlier on is definitely going to help.
And giving yourself permission not to be busy. I think there's a lot of busyness for busyness
Busy
sake, and
work.
yeah,
Yeah.
although it might not, that might not be conscious. Yeah, busy work. Like, oh, I've answered 100 emails today. I'm so busy. But what impact have you
But
had?
yeah, what
What's actually come out of that?
has that moved the needle at all? Inevitably, if it's email based. No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my cousin has recently been promoted into a more strategic role in housing.
Mm.
And she's really embraced that idea that, in order to be effective in the role that she's in, the busy work has to stop.
Yeah.
If
But I
she's
think,
doing this bigger picture thinking, running around chasing people for this or answering these emails is not going to help that happen. And
was
she's
often, sorry, no,
she's
go
she's uber wise and she's, managed to come to that by herself. But I think come to that decision by herself. But I think especially, if you're being promoted on the strength of the quality of your work, there's something about, well, I need to keep doing that thing. But actually, maybe that isn't the thing that you need to keep doing now. It's about a new challenge and a new outlook.
Yeah, and I love working with people on that transition as well. That
Mm,
where they're stood and they're in that new position, but they haven't quite let go or realized that they can let go of the busyness because they've always been measured by the busyness or measured their worth
their
or
success by
their
that. Yeah.
success by the busyness, and actually need to let go of that to be successful in that that step up.
Yeah.
And I really love that, trying to get them to see it's okay to let go of the busyness.
Mm.
You've got to let go of the busyness. There's bigger things for you.
Get out your bloody email. Yeah, yeah, similarly, I love the work I do with emerging leaders and kind of giving people the permission to be their own, have their own leadership style and that it doesn't have to be this way or that way or yeah.
I
Um,
worked with one lady. She just moved into like quite a senior um role. She'd been senior for a while, but she hadn't been directly managing teams, and then she changed organizations and got this senior role. And I think it was the first or the second session we did values together, and it was life-changing for her.
mhm.
Like that's what she said, because she suddenly realized that she could be herself as a leader. She didn't need to be
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
She could just be herself, and that was okay. It was
Hmm.
okay not to be like Mr. Jones or whoever she thought this like template of leadership was.
Yeah.
She could be herself, and that was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's some of my favorite work
Mm.
for sure.
Doesn't always come along that often. I don't know, but when it's
Yeah.
there, it's just so nice to be a part of.
Because I do think there's this very real still, and obviously I'm interested to hear what you think about this, you know, image of a leader being a strong, unemotional, white, middle-aged man
Mm-hmm.
who is never wrong,
Mm.
who never asks for help,
Mm-hmm. Doesn't
who,
empathize.
yeah, yeah, doesn't really have to show much care and compassion to people, um, and who always knows the answer.
Mm.
And it's just so amazing when I have those conversations with people about that isn't actually what leadership is.
Mm.
That still, women in their early 20s, mid 20s, still see that
Mm-hmm.
as what leadership is.
Mm. I was
Blows my
working with
mind.
a
And these are like shit hot young women
yeah.
who could fucking run the world with their little finger. Why do they still think that that's the thing?
Mm.
And I'm sure that isn't the case for everybody, but you
I see
know,
it quite a lot. Yeah.
yeah,
I was working with someone recently who yeah, young, 20 something, 20 probably nothing, female, in her first role. And we were looking at her insights profile, and she was kind of disappointed that she didn't have much red. We unpacked that a little bit, and it was to do with this idea of leadership being, that red profile of insights, like directive and go-getter and whatever else it says in the list of things. And then I got her to define what these other things were, and she basically defined leadership. I was like,
yeah,
well, what you've just said is the definition of leadership. It would be so nice if we could just let go of that. I don't know, that like cutout of Mr. Leader.
yeah, yeah. Mr. Leader, Mr. White, middle class, middle-aged leader.
Could
Well, I'm sure we could talk about that for hours,
have a whole
couldn't we?
podcast on this, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Maybe that'll be our round two, Tori. Um, okay. So do you want to just talk about kind of, I mean, we have already talked a bit about where you are now. Um, yeah, like where you are now, where do you want to go? Like how do you see the coaching industry? I don't know. Just
Mm.
just really small questions.
Really small question. Yeah. Where am I now? So when did we finish our course? 2020.
November
It's like,
2020.
yeah, so just over three years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, of coaching.
You've now got your PCC. I'm going to say it because I know what you like. You'd skim
Yes, I've got
over
my
that.
PCC.
I have coached you in the past on your reluctance to accept your achievements and successes. Yeah, your PCC, which is amazing. How many hours is that?
I think you need 500
Mm.
for PCC. Yeah, I think I'm at 1,000 now.
Wow.
Hmm.
Stop saying it like that. I think I'm at 1,000 now. Yeah, go me. Wow, that's some achievement, Tori.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I couldn't have done it without without BetterUp, and I'm very, very grateful for the clients that I get through them. I think, you know, that the coaching industry is changing because of these sort of, let's go ahead and call them market disruptors, like BetterUp. I think that there is a change.
In
And I
what
know,
way?
well, I think coaching is becoming more accessible. And that probably means several things. Maybe, I don't know whether that means it will be more or less saturated. I'm not sure, or there'll be more demand potentially. I
Both,
know,
maybe.
yeah, both maybe. I think, you know, I was going to say obviously, but maybe it's not obvious. I could charge more for my time outside of BetterUp than what I get paid through BetterUp. And then I get more, it's easier for me to find clients through BetterUp.
Yeah.
So there's very much lots of pros and cons. I know there's probably quite a lot of worry within the industry about these sort of platforms cheapening coaching or taking away clients, or, you know, reducing the going rate or something. I'm quite conscious of that.
Do you think that's true?
I don't know. I don't think I have a broad enough view across the coaching industry to know what's going on. Maybe that's another interesting podcast for us, like bring some people together and have a chat about it and see what people think from different pockets. But because I didn't, you know, it's not like we were coaches in like the good old days or whatever someone that's a seasoned coach would say. And I haven't worked with big corporations privately, so I don't know whether that work is going away or dwindling. I haven't been in that side of the market in order to see the trends. But I do see the benefits of making coaching more accessible. You know, I've been able to work with such a broad range of people through BetterUp, from graduates like in their first role and still doing their degree, to, you know, C-suite in organizations. And I think just being able to work with that breadth of people has been so interesting. And the fact that a graduate can access coaching for 6 months and have a weekly session if they wanted to is such an amazing resource to have for your staff.
Yeah.
And to get that choice of coaches. Don't know where I was going with this.
No, I mean, I think I was just trying to get your opinion on, you know, are platforms like BetterUp devaluing coaching? I mean, I just don't think they do. And I think it's horses for courses. And the more that coaching is available, the more people experience it, and then the more people realize its power, and then more people will want it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's definitely something about looking at it from an abundancy mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And not everybody's got access. Not everybody works for a company that can employ BetterUp.
Yeah.
Not everybody, you know, I just think there's so many different ways and means for people to access coaching. And I just always come back to my dad's old adage, which will probably take a minute to sink in, that the best place to build a piano factory is next door to a piano factory.
Why?
Tori's looking very lost now, as I'm
Confusing
sure you
time.
all are. Well, because if you want to go and buy a piano,
Okay. Go to the piano factory, and now you've
mm-hmm,
got two to choose from.
mm-hmm,
And also you can see what next door's piano factory are doing.
yeah. I just
Mm.
think, and like you say, I haven't got any evidence. We'd have to spend ages collating evidence from, like you say, the good old days, whatever they were, that we don't know about. You'd have to collate data from that, with data from now, with data from private coaches, but like my rates as a private coach fluctuate depending on who they're for.
Mm.
So, and then as well, there's AI thrown in, isn't there?
Mm. Mm.
But don't tell me that, people are going to rather have a computer coach them than a person. They're just not.
Mm.
And I'm sure that it could work, on a very basic level, but nothing can replace two humans sat in a room or on a call, exchanging ideas and
Mm.
creating a coaching engagement together.
Mm.
So I'm remaining optimistic about the future of the coaching industry. Well, because if not, we're buggered, aren't we?
I'll be interested to see what AI brings actually. Because I can imagine in many ways, the algorithms would be much better at spotting slight changes in body language or changes in voice tone and
Yeah, and
literally from an analytical perspective.
yeah, they'd be good at like picking up if you're using the same word
Mm.
but and I'm sure it will have its uses.
Mm.
But I don't really know how helpful it is to be threatened by it. But maybe that's just my heart-led way of not
Only the
dealing,
future will tell. I
not
don't
dealing
know
with the
either.
truth. I don't know. Yeah.
I know that BetterUp have, started using it for automated messaging and things like that, but I haven't really explored it that much.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I don't really want to finish on AI, but I am conscious of time.
Yeah, I'm good for time though. So if you want to
Okay. All right. So we don't have to
not
run.
finish on AI,
Okay.
that's totally fine.
So I asked sort of where you are now, and then we got a bit waylaid.
How did we end up at AI?
Oh, because it's my brain, isn't it? Um, oh, because I kind of talked about the future of coaching, the coaching
Yeah,
industry.
let's stop
Like,
that there.
is there anything else you want to say about that, or no?
No.
Just think about piano factories, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
fine. Um, and you've talked about like what you'd like to do more of this year, being more private clients, more of your conservation coaching leadership group,
Mm.
and opening that out to multiple organizations as opposed to just putting it into one.
Mm.
Um, so where can people find out about you? Let me do that bit so then I don't forget.
So they can find me on LinkedIn. Uh, search for Tori Jeffers. Uh, yeah, I think my websites are linked from there. There's also a conservation coaching page on LinkedIn that you can have a look at. We've got a website which is conservationcoaching.com. And I am on Instagram, but I don't really use it very much for coaching. I use it more for some other things that I do. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me.
Yeah, okay. And I've just remembered the other
Yeah.
thing that you do is that you're a self-taught silversmith
Yeah.
and you make gorgeous jewelry
Thank
and
you.
you've inspired me. I now collect sea glass everywhere I go.
Do you?
And I'd forgotten to tell you that. Yes,
What's the best bit that you found?
they're all very little.
Mm,
Um, but the best place was Tynemouth
okay.
in the northeast. And there was
Mm.
just loads, and it was just I happened to be there when I didn't have loads of time.
Ah.
And I could have just spent all day there picking up sea glass.
Mm.
So
Is Tynemouth near to Seaham? Near to sort of
um,
um
it's near Whitley Bay in Newcastle.
yeah, I think it's like the same stretch of coast. There used to be a big at least one anyway, glass factory up there,
Do
and
you know,
they
I
used to
wonder if it
dump
was
all the
something like
waste.
that.
Mm.
I think Siam's not far. I'm going to have a look now.
Durham, that's what I was going to say. It's not too far from Durham, I
No,
don't
it's
think.
not far from Durham. But Siam, yeah, Siam is on that coastline.
Mm.
Further up towards Sunderland. Yeah, it's certainly not out of the question that that stuff could have ended up there.
Mm.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm.
So how do you combine that with your coaching, or don't
Um,
you? Or does
no,
it
I don't
depend?
really. I'm doing sort of less of the jewelry now. I'm trying to pick and choose what I do. Doing a few commissions. I'm making an engagement ring at the moment, which is very exciting. Um, and yeah, more of a just a creative outlet and
Mm,
sort of a mindful activity. So I taught myself when I had actually some time off work with stress, and it was sort of my way back to wellness, I suppose, was through
mm,
this sort of creative activity. So um yeah, having to make things takes the fun out of it. So
yeah,
I was supplying different shops and things, and I just found that I was starting to resent doing it or dread doing it. And I thought I need to sort of take a step back from this a little bit and re-find that joy that made me start
yeah,
in the first place, and sort of almost re-find a hobby in it, in a
yeah.
sense.
I could
Um,
totally understand that.
mm,
Because if you had to do a certain number of a certain thing, you'd just grow to hate it, I guess.
mm.
Yeah. I had another good question then, and I can't remember. Oh, yeah. So I guess, you just said that was like your journey back to wellness. And
Mm.
again, that's stuff that you can feed into that leadership training, isn't it? Kind of maybe encouraging people to find that thing that might relax them, that might be a creative outlet.
Yeah, it's so important to find that time for yourself when you I think when you feel that you don't have time for yourself is
Yeah,
when you really need to make that time.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I think, especially working from home, it's very easy to roll out of bed, not have a shower, not have breakfast, not have anything to drink, and hop on a Zoom call or whatever, Teams call, and then realize it gets to lunchtime and you're still in your PJs and you haven't had anything to eat. Sort of need to take a bit of a look at your life at that point, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's that thing about, and I say this quite a lot to clients, that they say if you haven't got time to meditate 15 minutes a day, you should be meditating half an hour a day.
Yeah, exactly that sentiment. Yeah.
And I think, again, still, why is it still there? Why is it still pervasive? This kind of, Brené Brown calls it wearing burnout as a badge.
The busyness badge or burnout badge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's not cool that you've got to lunchtime and you've not got dressed, you've not brushed teeth because you've just been working.
Mm,
You know, that's not proof of success. but there is still that outlook in places.
Mm.
And I think people still, some people, not everybody, and obviously I'm making a lot of sweeping generalizations here, you know, there's something about talking about how busy you are shows how important you are.
Hmm. Yeah. It's that value as well. I'm so busy, I'm so needed, therefore I'm valuable.
I'm valuable, I'm important,
Mm.
I have worth.
Mm.
And like for me, the Brené Brown thing of like, don't attach your worth to how much you got done today.
Mm.
I struggle with that every day.
Yeah, totally.
Even with what I preach and what I read and what I, and what I know, we still, and I do think it's more present in women, although that's, I'm not saying it's not in men.
Mm.
I fight every day not to attach my worth to what I've ticked off on my bloody to-do list.
Yeah.
And I think, back to what you said about impact, if I can just remind a few people of that,
Mm.
and if I can help a few people come to the conclusion of that, then those are some good ripples, aren't they?
Yeah, I think we forget to question things as well. Sort of, why is that on my to-do list? Why am I
Yeah.
going to that meeting?
Yeah.
Um, why am I answering that email? And we sort of we go rather than thinking about where we want to get to, maybe.
Mm.
Makes sense. And I think going back to burnout, it's a really sneaky little monster. It it creeps up on you, and I think lots of people are talking about burnout at the moment, and I feel like it's being bandied around,
Devalued.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
sense of like, oh, it was really traumatic, and those kinds of
Mm.
like quite serious words that get misused.
I didn't
I
even really know I was burnt out
exactly, yeah,
until
afterwards.
probably like by the time I had to close the business for COVID, I was definitely burnt out, but I did not realize it.
Mm.
I don't think I realized it for another year. So
I think
that's after
sometimes,
I'd done my coaching qualification. Like,
yeah,
it's
okay.
just looking back on it
Mm.
and realize that you're just living in survival mode all the time.
Mm.
That so obviously if you're in survival mode, you're not able to self-assess. So you don't know that you're in burnout.
That's why I think if you're talking about feeling burnt out, you're probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're recognizing there's some signs that
There's
have,
stuff you can do there and then.
yeah, or that's led
Yeah.
you to burnout before, or
Mm,
could be warning signs of burnout, then that's different. But if you're
mm.
saying kind of, oh, I'm so burnt out, you're probably not.
Probably
I think,
not.
like you
Yeah.
say, you often don't realize you were burnt out until you're better again.
Mm, yeah. And it took me a long while, A, to
Mm.
get better again, and B, to realize it.
And everyone experiences it differently, but that would be my sense of it.
Mm. So it's interesting that we've kind of come back to burnout again.
Mm.
So, mhm, what what do you think it's important to do as a coach running their business
Mm.
to avoid burnout? Because certainly what I find is that when I'm struggling just
Mm.
with life, whether that's, like hormones, as we were discussing off the call,
Mm.
or the family stress that's going on, I find it's always client creation and building networks and reaching, having the courage to reach out that falls by the wayside, that feels I can't do.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering about how do we avoid that before it happens?
Yeah,
And
it's a
does
good
that resonate
question.
with you? Because actually, that might not be your experience.
I think again, I feel very lucky for Better Up because that's provided some stability in the
Mm,
background to everything else that I work on. Um, I do think there's a slowing down to speed up though.
yeah,
Um,
that's Rich Litvin, I think, isn't it?
is it?
Well, I mean, it's just common sense, but yeah, I think he definitely talks about that.
Right. Yeah, I used to say it at work because I felt that we were just going, again, it comes back to impact for me,
Yeah,
like a million miles an hour without really
yeah,
even having a map, let alone knowing where you're
where we're going.
going.
Yeah.
Um, and I think slowing down, as coaches, hopefully we're able to sort of check in with ourselves and notice what's going on, what habits are changing, what red flags are appearing, and just sort of taking that temperature test. And
Mm.
again, like when you think you don't have time for yourself, that's when you really need to make time for yourself. I think it's all linked, Ruth.
I
It's like
know.
it's
It's
everything's
all
come together.
perfectly linked. Yeah.
And it's much easier said than done, of course. When you're in it, it's really hard to see. And yeah, definitely. I think in some ways, old habits die hard. Even as a coach, there's still a tendency to like cram in as much as possible because also working for yourself, what if it goes away tomorrow?
Yeah.
What if that nobody wants the coach next month? And
Yeah.
that kind of feast or famine.
Feast or famine. I was just about to
Mm,
say that. Yeah. Yeah. So then you kind of cram in, you load in your diary, but then you're knackered.
yeah, I notice my energy is just
Mm,
gone and I'm I'm not present for clients. It's just much harder to be
mm,
in the call rather than on the call.
yeah. Because you're tired or you're preoccupied and
Mm.
yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So I think let's finish on like, what are your hopes for your business this year?
Um, my hopes would be to help lots more people. There's that word help, I'm aware of it. Um, to be better conservation leaders. Um, I think I really want to focus on growing that this year.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's really, I don't know, this call's kind of cemented that for me, that impact word that keeps coming up and the passion that kind of brings up. So just
Yeah,
remembering that,
what it gives
yeah.
you.
And it's
Yeah.
also it's not going to be where the money is. So I think there's that balance as well.
Mm.
There's not much funding on that side of things, but it is.
But if I was your coach, Tori, I'd ask, is that a story you're telling yourself?
Maybe. maybe. Yeah. So my hope is to grow conservation coaching. I want to do 2 courses this year with like open groups, so
Yeah.
people from any organizations can join, and to have more private clients as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where I want to be this year, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so nice to just, I love that you've like realized just talking about it on this call, like, because it's so obvious in your face, everything, like when you start talking about, not just the conservation stuff, but that impact and
Mm.
enabling people to effectively have impact while still looking after themselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good, important work that you're doing.
Mm. Thank you. Am I allowed
Well,
to ask you what your hopes are for your business this year?
yeah, you are. Well, I need to finish my 100 invitations by the end of
Oh yes,
February.
of course.
Um, I kind of set tunes back in October just because, it's me and I can't just do New Year's resolutions. I do October resolution. Um, so I've got some quite clear visions for what I want to achieve. Um, Mainly just a full-time like week that isn't just based on one-to-one coaching. I want a mixture of facilitation, training, group coaching. Um, yeah, I know I'm being a bit elusive about that.
Mm.
But
Must
I'm
ask
allowed
you
to be.
more later.
I'm the host.
Host
But
prerogative.
yeah, I think to just certainly for this year or as a January thing, to just keep going with the intentions that I've already set.
Mm, that's nice.
Yeah. And it's really just around it's not negotiable, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to do it really well.
Mm,
So I've just got to crack on.
just gotta do it now.
Just got to do it.
Just gotta do
And if I
it.
know myself well enough, I will do it. So,
Mm.
so yeah. And I love that we're talking like it's like January resolutions, and actually it's probably going to be May or June when this
Yeah.
comes out.
That's true.
But I'm already excited to listen to it because, like, to think about listening to it in May or June is just gorgeous,
Mm.
with the sun on our faces.
Hopefully on a beach somewhere, maybe.
Yes. Oh, well, I'm off to Lanzarote on the 10th of February. So
Are you? Everyone's going to Lanzarote. I need to get on the Lanzarote
gorgeous.
boat.
Oh, in fact, I've just remembered something that I will share with you about what I decided for this year
Yeah.
back in October is that I would like to create a life that I don't want to have that I don't need holidays from,
Mm,
but that allows for me to have a lot of holidays.
I love that.
That is basically what I'm doing this year.
The dream.
Yeah,
Living your best life.
yeah. So I'm starting as I mean to go on with 7 days in Lanzarote on the 10th of February.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
Oh, the weather
Well,
will be good, I think.
oh my God, it is. It's already like 24 degrees.
Yeah, apparently my hairdresser was telling me it was 27 degrees on Christmas Day in Lanzarote.
I mean,
Or was
come
it
on.
Tenerife? Anyway,
Anyway,
same part.
yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Tori. I've had the best time and I could
Yeah.
keep chatting for hours.
Thank you so much
Um,
for having me on the podcast. It's been really nice to chat to you, Ruth.
You're more than welcome, and how lovely that this is where we are.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tori.